Hello, my name is Steve Lampe, and you're listening to The BAM Show.
This is the BAM Show, Barter and Marketing, where we get you the real deal. I'm your host, Joshua Smith from Sherwood, and today we have a very special guest. Recently retired, former head of purchasing and logistics for PPG, and dear friend Steve Lampe. Steve, welcome to the BAM Show.
Thank you very much, Josh.
Can you give our viewers and our listeners a little inside info on who Steve Lampe is? Give us a little background on yourself.
Sure. Well, I'm a graduate of Penn State, actually, accounting graduate. And I started off with another company in their internal audit department a long time ago, back in 1975. Worked there for 3 years. I ended up then coming into PPG in 1978. And I joined their finance department. A lot of traveling the first few years in their internal audit department. And then I worked through there. I got a job in purchasing. I ended up going back into finance, into one of the business units, back into a controllership job at PPG, and then basically back into purchasing again. So my whole career, which spanned 37 years, was really just me toggling kind of back and forth between purchasing and finance.
Tell us a little more about PPG and what they actually do.
Yeah, well, we've been around for a while. We set up shop back in 1883, and we started off primarily as a glass company. Soon thereafter, we added on some chemical businesses and some coatings businesses, and we marched forward really until about almost 100 years from that time. Mostly a glass company. The coatings business was never more than 40% or so. It was very small initially. It got a little bit bigger. It kept getting bigger and bigger, and eventually we made a strategic decision, that it would make more sense for us to de-emphasize the glass business and to emphasize the coatings business. So that's what we did in the last 20 years or so. Basically, has been an effort to morph the company from 80% glass, which is what it was when I joined almost, to today we're 90+% coatings.
Incredible.
So kind of a big change.
I don't know if you got a chance to read this report at all, but the Ubiquity, which is some of what they do, is a media audit company, and K2, which is an investigative consulting company, came out with this whole report on lack of transparency with ad agencies on behalf of the ANA. Did you get a chance to read that at all?
I did. I read the executive summary, and then I read most of the detailed report behind it, and it was interesting. We're all kind of a function of our background, and when I came out of school, I was an auditor. I'm a CPA by trade. I did that kind of stuff. So when I read stuff like that, I think of, wow, there's a lot of gray area here. There's a lot of opportunity for things to be misrepresented, and for people to hide behind, a fiduciary relationship or a contract, or add an addendum to a contract that allows something to happen that wouldn't have otherwise been appropriate. So I just see, when I read that, a cloud over the relationship between the advertisers and the agencies. And if I was still in the game, if I was advising other people in the game right now, I'd say, you need to clear the deck. You need to bring people in who are willing to address this and say, yes, there are opportunities here for us to do some things with rebates,
yes,
and other appointments of services to preferred agencies, that type of thing that can get you in trouble. I don't think it's going to continue like this, because as more and more people realize that this is kind of habitually occurring in the marketplace,
yes,
right? Good CMOs and other people, buyers, for example, they get more involved in this. They're going to start asking people directly on this, and you're going to have to sign statements that say, no, I'm not going to take anything like that without disclosing it to the advertiser.
Yeah, agreed. Mm-hmm. Steve, do me a favor. Tell me about procurement's role in innovation.
Okay. Innovation, when I think of that, when I hear that, I know it's directly related to our top line, to our growth of our revenue line, which is very important, and probably our biggest challenge today is growing that top line. So innovation is critical. And when I think about innovation and purchasing, I think of, internal innovation, and you'd recognize that by an R&D function. And we have certainly large R&D function in different parts of the world that do analysis and research work on projects and technologies for the specific regions of the world, because what works in North America is probably not going to work as is in Europe. So we have innovation that's occurring at that level, and then we have innovation occurring externally as well. And those are what suppliers bring to us, because all of our big suppliers, they know what's important to us. They know who our customers are. They know that if we're selling to Boeing, it's very important for Boeing that the paint that we sell them becomes lighter and lighter.
Yeah.
It becomes resistant to fuel or
Sure.
and that type of thing. So they work on that in their own shop. After they get that to the point where they're ready to show it off, they come to purchasing, and that's purchasing's role. We act kind of as a gatekeeper for both the internal and the external works that are going on. And hopefully by putting the two together, we end up with innovation. Now we measure that too, which is, I think, important and necessary. If you would ask me, well, how successful have you guys been at innovation? That's one of the key metrics for our technical people, is to go back on a 5-year period and they look to see how much of the revenue that we've incurred is a result of new technology. And our goal is about a third. A third of our sales, we like to say, should be about.
But that's massive.
That's a massive,
that's
yeah.
PPG side.
It puts
that
a lot of
massive.
pressure. Yes, indeed. A lot of pressure on our guys internally, and a lot of pressure on our suppliers too, to come to us with new ideas and technologies that incrementally improve the formulas that we're using.
I want to talk about, because I hear from our CEO Steve a little bit of some stories about you at PPG, so I do have to bring those up. I hear you have a very direct management style. No, not a politician. Really, don't take anyone's crap. I mean, you say it how it is, which I love.
Yeah.
And how did that impact you as a boss and a colleague at PPG? I'm just curious, because we don't come across a lot of people in corporate America who really are so direct. And in my interactions with you, you always told me straightforward, Josh, you're such a good-looking guy, and I know I am. But no, you are. You're direct, and we appreciate that. But it's very rare that we come across that.
Well, I'll tell you, and I don't know if I'd go as far as Steve did there, because in any company, any big company, you're going to take a little flack. I mean, that just goes with the game. But I will tell you that I've thought for a long time that, the same skill set that makes someone successful as an entry-level accountant is not the same skill set that will make them a successful controller, 25 years later. So that means that, if you're a real amiable on your first day on the job, that necessarily is not going to make you successful 20 years down the road in your job as controller of a group.
Sure.
So you need to look at your toolkit, I think, and see, what am I strong at? What do I want to do differently? What do I want to be known to my people where they can depend on me?
PPG and Sherwood have done some great barter work together.
Yes.
But I know initially you were not, when you were a prospect, you were not all gung-ho about this. You were not a believer. It took a while to convert you. Mm-hmm. As Steve always said, you got into the nitty-gritty granularity of every single thing. Mm-hmm. What was it about us that was like, aha, this makes sense. This is great. I totally get it. It converted you over. And then my part two is, what kind of advice would you give for other companies out there who are looking for corporate trade services?
Well, yeah, I remember very well how Steve and I were introduced to each other. I was a brand new director of finance for one of our paint divisions, the architectural business. It wasn't doing very well at the time. And I started looking at the items that we have on the balance sheet, and we had $3 or $4 million of what was called trade credits. And I wasn't familiar with them at all, because I had just come from one of these purchasing jobs into this job. And so I called around and I said, hey, what are these trade credits on the books for, and how come they're 3 or 4 years old? And, people start looking at their shoes, and they said, well, this is, we got these trade credits from these two companies, but they're both bankrupt now, so we're kind of stuck with these. And I said, you're kidding. Well, why weren't they written off? Well, no one really wanted to address it at the time. So we worked on that, and Steve came in, and I told him about this, and he said, listen, he said, they're not my credits. They're not my company's credits. But after we talked for an hour or so, let me look at them and let me see what I can do for you. And he ended up cutting a check for me for about $1.5 million. So he solved, in a big way, half of that problem over 2 meetings for me. So that was a big legitimizer from where I was sitting.
Sure.
And immediately I began to listen to him because he had credibility. He did what he said, and problem solvers. At PPG we talk about that. It's important to be close to those people. When I work with suppliers, I mention that to them, that being a problem solver is something that'll get you more business with PPG. So he did that. That was the beginning of our relationship, and it's still one of the things when I talk to other people, even when I was in my job, I would talk to our marketing people about Steve and Sherwood putting their money where their mouth is and just doing what they say.
Yeah, and Steve, just so everyone knows, Steve Litwin is actually our CEO at Sherwood, so just wanted to clear so
Too many
everyone knows.
Steves. Right?
Yeah, too many Steves, right.
Yeah, but he's done a good job of creating credibility and of showing integrity consistently. I mean, he's never dropped the ball, and I've been involved with him in probably 4 or 5 deals over the last 20 years.
Yeah.
And all of them have worked out very well. And when he couldn't do something, that was just as important, right?
Absolutely.
He would come to me very early and say, all this is going to work except this. And that's okay too, as long as you address it early on. So in general, very happy with what he's been able to do.
Well, I can see why you guys get along so well. Both very direct and say it how it is. And if it's not going to work, then we can't do it.
Yeah.
No, I see it.
Yeah.
And how about anyone else who's, again, looking for corporate trade type services and they're hunting around and they're getting pitched by different companies? I mean, any advice you would give them?
I think you need to identify a horse and work with that horse because you're going to be better off in the long term.
What I like to do, Steve, with all of my guests is do a little word association. So I'm going to give you a word.
All right.
You tell me the first thing that comes to your mind. Okay, don't think too much, just whatever pops into your head.
Another word or an
anything,
idea? Anything. Okay.
Anything you want to say.
Okay.
Facebook.
My daughters.
Aerospace.
Boeing and Airbus.
Virtual reality.
Don't understand.
Serena Williams.
Great tennis player.
Efficiencies.
Difficult.
Competition.
Great.
Negotiate.
As much as possible.
So, Steve, now we come to the fun part of the show.
Okay.
I like getting a little bit of our business, involved in these shows, which is trading. Okay, this is not the type of trading really that we do, but it's a form of trading. So I like bringing my guests a gift. Okay, and since you're recently retired, what I figured I'd get you is a couple things for you.
All right.
I have a nice bottle of Josh wine. Isn't that something?
That is something.
That is something for you to enjoy when you're sitting on your balcony, okay? Doing whatever it is you do.
Okay.
So please, here you go. And then I also found this enlarged tennis ball, okay? Because Steve is a diehard tennis player, but figuring as he's getting older, it's harder for him to see the ball. So what we did is we got him this 3 to 4 times the size tennis ball for him to play with. Now, Steve, you can keep these in front of you for right now, okay?
All right.
But for you to keep them, I'm looking for something that you're going to give me, or I'll take these right back.
Okay.
I don't want that shirt.
All right. Well, what I offer you, I heard before, Josh, that you like country music. Is that right?
Yes, that is right.
Now, Toby Keith, he thinks very highly of what's called a red Solo cup.
Yes.
So I have one right here. This is a red Solo cup. It's got a little water in it, so be careful. But I'm willing to part with the water and the red Solo cup in lieu of these 2 items.
I got to be honest with you, that was the most creative trade anyone has gotten me. But the best part about this is I'm not going to keep this.
Okay.
Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to offer this red Solo cup to our audience out there for them to make a trade. Now, this may not get a lot of hits, But for those of you who are interested in a solo cup, maybe we can get Toby Keith to sign it.
Maybe that would be dynamite.
That would
You
be
get some hits
dynamite.
on it.
They can hit me up on my links and they can find out. But this was very interesting and very creative on your part.
Oh, thank you.
Steve, it has truly been a pleasure. So nice to see you. Thanks for making the trip
Absolutely.
east of Pittsburgh.
Yes.
Perfect. I got that right. Looking forward to seeing you soon. And again, to all the listeners and viewers out there, be sure to tune in the next time on The BAM Show. Barter and Marketing, where we get you the real deal.
This is a red Solo cup. It's got a little water in it, so be careful. But I'm willing to part with the water and the red Solo cup in lieu of these two items.
I got to be honest with you, that was the most creative trade anyone has gotten me.